Hello and welcome to the Just Car Insurance Australian Drifting GP. I'm Andrew Hawkins and joining me, Championship Manager Brett Wilkinson.
Thanks, Andrew. We're currently 1 round out of 4 into our 5th championship season. And like the sport of drifting, it's growing rapidly within this country. So let's take a look back down memory lane at the first 4 seasons of ADGP.
The Just Car Insurance Australian Drifting GP started in 2011, with the very first event being held at the Calder Park Thunderdome in Victoria. The event was special not just for being the first event for ADGP, but it was also the first time the Thunderdome had been used for a major event in a very long time. A custom-built track was made, utilising the walls and the bank, and it made for plenty of action. The first ADGP event was packed, with grandstands overflowing as they came to see over 60 cars trying to qualify for the top 32 battles. The very first event saw Andreas Paraskevas in 3rd place, Tarquin in 2nd, and Luke Fink took the win. Round 2 headed to Queensland Raceway, and wild weather was mixed in with wild action. It saw the use of a custom layout never been used at QR before. Luke Fink made it 2 in a row with another win, defeating Josh Botcher in the finals. And Agus made the podium again, taking 3rd. The final round of the first season headed to Perth, which also used a section of track never used for drifting competition before. Luke Fink made it 3 from 3, winning the round and taking out the very first season of the Just Car Insurance Australian Drifting GP. Denzo took 2nd place for the event, which gave him 3rd for the season, and while Agus didn't make the podium, he held on to 2nd in the championship. 2012 saw ADGP grow to 4 rounds, and instead of any cars just turning up and trying to qualify, a registered driver system was put in place, so the same 32 drivers competed for the year in Pro Class, while anyone else could enter a separate privateer competition. The season kicked off in Tasmania at Symmons Plains Raceway. The first battle of the season-long war between previous champion Luke Fink and Rob White started here, going to Luke Fink this time around. Round 2 headed to Calder Park Thunderdome.
Yeah, boy!
This time around, Rob White defeated Luke Fink after double reruns in the finals. Round 3 headed to Malala Motorsport Park in South Australia. Once again, Rob White and Luke Fink looked like they would battle it out in the finals, but some damage to Luke's car in the top 8 meant he lost his top 4 battle. He still mowed the podium with 3rd place, but Rob White's win put him in the lead of the championship by a narrow margin. The final round of the 2012 season headed to Barbagallo Raceway. Rob White's slight lead meant he still needed to make it to the finals if Luke Fink did, if he wanted to take out the championship. Rob had cooling issues yet managed to make the finals to go head-to-head with Luke Fink. Fink won the round, but Rob's 2nd place was enough to secure the championship. Meanwhile, Ben Pertel took 3rd for the season. ADGP then switched to a summer season, meaning it started in late 2013 and went into 2014. But before that, ADGP held 2 exhibition matches. The Australia Day Drift Festival at Sydney Motorsport Park, the first ever event on the South Circuit, and ADGP also organised for Formula Drift Asia to come to Australia for the very first time, holding a joint event. with ADGP exhibition match on the Saturday and Formula Drift Asia on the Sunday. A smash hit combo. The championship season kicked off at Malala Motorsport Park. Rob White only managed 5th, and some new names hit the podium for the first round, with Agus in first, Michael Prosnik in second, and Josh Botcher in third. Round 2 headed to Barbagallo Raceway and a switch to the main track. The championship standings were thrown into a blender with a whole new top 5. Matt Harvey from Tasmania took the win. Dale Campaign's 3rd place put him into the lead of the championship after 2 rounds. Round 3 headed to Sydney Motorsport Park, and once again, the championship was thrown on its head. For the 3rd time running, we saw a fresh set of names on the podium. Andy Gray from Japan took 3rd, Rob White was back on the podium with 2nd, and Levi Clark took his first ADGP win. Rob White somehow managed to come out the other end in the lead of the championship, but only by the smallest of margins. And anyone inside the top 8 still had a shot at the title as we headed to round 4 at the Calder Park Thunderdome for the decider. The battles were intense and went down to the wire. Rob White was knocked out in the top 8 and came 5th, so he had to sit on the sidelines and watch and see how the rest of the event unfolded. Luckily for him, Michael Prosnik knocked out Nick Coulson in the top 4 and he secured 3rd place, while Bo Yates went on to win his first podium. Rob White made it 2 championships in a row by the narrowest of margins, with Nick Coulson in 2nd and Michael Prosnik in 3rd. The 2014-15 season kicked off at Barbagallo Raceway, and for something different, was held inside Power Cruise Perth. The new licensing system was introduced this season, meaning anyone with an ADGP licence could enter any round, and there was no longer a feeder or privateer competition run separately. Number 1 and number 2 from last season started strong, making the finals, with Nick Coulson getting the win and Rob White in 2nd. Round 2 headed to the Dome for another fiercely contested event. Rob White debuted his new NASCAR-powered 370Z, but problems meant he was out early and his championship hopes copped a big hit. Bo Yates and Michael Prosnik went at it again in the finals with a repeat of the previous season, and once again, Bo took the win. Nick Coulson managed 4th place, keeping him at the lead of the championship, with Bo Yates moving into 2nd and Rosenblatt into 3rd. Round 3 headed to Malala Motorsport Park, and the championship was thrown into a blender once again. Bo Yates' new engine package wasn't finished in time, so he missed the event and destroyed his championship chase. Rosenblatt had dramas in qualifying and started down in the order, but it was a blessing in disguise as he went up against Nick Coulson in the top 16 and defeated him, opening up the championship. Michael Rosenblatt and Levi Clark made it to the finals, with Rosenblatt taking the win and moved both of them ahead of Coulson in the championship standings, but like the previous season, only a handful of points separated the top drivers. This meant the final round was set to be a nail-biter, with 3 drivers all in with a shot at the championship, which was held at Sydney Motorsport Park, once again inside Power Cruise. Coulson knocked himself out early in the top 32, which meant the championship race was between Levi Clark and Michael Rosenblatt. Once Rosenblatt made the top 4, the championship was his, but he and Levi Clark still battled it out in the finals, with Rosenblatt taking 3rd. Meanwhile, Bo Yates and Josh Botcher battled in the finals, with JB taking the win, which also elevated him to third in the championship. Levi Clark took second, and Michael Rosenblatt became the new Australian champion in the Newlon Oils R32 Skyline. With 2 nail-biting seasons in a row, we can no doubt expect the same this year for the 2015-16 Just Car Insurance Australian Drifting GP. Well, one man and one company that has been behind ADGP since day one is Simon Drage from Just Car Insurance, and he joins us on the panel now. Welcome to the show, Simon.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you've been around since the very first event, and what is it that made Just Car get behind the sport of drifting in such a big way?
Well, drifting itself targets generally a young audience, and Just Car Insurance also targets a young audience with our modified, high performance and imported types of cars. So the actual sport itself resonates quite well with our demographic. So it was our opportunity to be able to have a large organisation back an up and coming sport and series within Australia.
So for you, it's not just about the sponsorship though. You actually like the sport of drifting, you follow it, you take an interest in it. How much have you actually noticed the sport change since we started in 2011?
Well, it's definitely grown exponentially. The quality of cars and drivers has gone through the roof, so to speak, since 2011. And I think ADGP itself has also made other drivers that aren't even part of the actual Australian Drifting Grand Prix, made them aware of the actual sport and the level that they need to play at and start to aim at to be able to get to this level of competition within Australia. So definitely the ADGP itself has encouraged a lot of growth, both as professional drivers and professional teams and cars. And you can see it just in the livery of the cars and even the drivers in their race suits.
Now, it's not just drifting that Just Car Insurance is behind. What other forms of motorsport or events are you guys involved with?
We're involved in rally, we're involved in V8 utes, we're also involved in time attack, and on top of that, we also attend from a grassroots perspective all events across the country.
Well, there you have it. Just Car Insurance, not only big supporters of drifting in this country, but also supporters of all types of motorsport and the modified car scene as well. Thanks for your continued support, Simon, and for joining us on the show.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Now stick around, as after the break we catch up with 2014-15 reigning champion, Michael Rosenblatt.
Welcome back to the Just Car Insurance Australian Drifting GP. Joining us on the show now is reigning champion Michael Rosenblatt. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Michael, you flew under the radar in your first season of ADGP. You were the silent assassin. But last year, obviously, you stepped up your game. You took out the championship. How does it feel now to be Australian champion? And obviously, every drifter knows who you are now.
To be classed as number one in Australia, it's what we've been working for the last 2 years, and I think every drifter's dream is to sit on that top spot. So I just got to defend it now and not get a big head, and just have fun with it.
So does being reigning champion put more pressure on you or less moving into this season?
I don't feel any more pressure than last year. Obviously you want to deliver, and there's probably an expectation of you to be at the pointy end and deliver every round, but I'm just going to go out and probably have a bit more fun with it this year and enjoy it, and just have a lot of fun.
Now let's talk about the car now. Last year you were relatively underpowered compared to some of the front runners, but obviously the chassis and suspension was dialed in pretty good with your driving. Have you made any major changes? Have you got any extra power for this year?
Yeah, this year we've probably got about another 200 horsepower, depending on what nitrous shot we put in the car. It's about 500 horsepower by itself at the wheels, so it's definitely plenty enough to mix it up with the big boys and keep the car nice and safe and reliable for the championship.
So how did round one go for you, and what's your game plan moving forward?
Round one went relatively well. We qualified really well. Obviously, it'd be nice to come straight out and win the first round and get everyone a little bit nervous. But fourth place with a few little minor car problems that we had, I'm super happy to come away with fourth.
Now, as reigning champion, you're probably the best person to ask this. If you had to be a betting man and put predictions down for this season, other than yourself, who are the big names you think that are going to be up there at the end of the season?
Personally, I probably would put money on Bo Yates. He's very consistent. He's always at the pointy end of the field, and you watch him in practice, he can do a lap after lap very consistently. So he'd be my number one. Josh Botcher's got his car very dialed in, and he's hungry. He wants that championship, and he's very committed. So they're probably my two top guys that I'm worried about this year.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's an insight from reigning champion Michael Rosenblatt for this season. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
Now, don't go anywhere, as after the break we have a technical feature on E85 and this episode's drift tip thanks to Drift School Australia. Welcome back to the Just Car Insurance Australian Drifting GP. Now it's time for this episode's drift tip from Drift School Australia.
Hi guys, I'm Fernando from Drift School Australia, and for today's drifting tip we are talking handbrakes. A handbrake is very important in a drift car as it's used to control the drift and adjust your line. If you're only centimetres away from the car in front of you, you want to make sure your handbrake works correctly, so that you can make the necessary corrections during the chase. The handbrake is also a great way to learn as a beginner. Now it is important to make sure your handbrake works correctly. On a factory car, if you pull the handbrake, it gets stuck on. So you want a handbrake button to put on your handbrake to stop it from locking into place. Another way to do it is put some gaffer tape over the handbrake button. You also want to make sure that your handbrake is adjusted before heading to the track, which requires adjustment of the cable. And for the ultimate, you can install a hydraulic handbrake, which is much more consistent but for track use only. There it is, the drift tip for today. See you next time.
Like most things, motorsport is constantly evolving. One of the biggest changes we've seen in recent years is a switch to ethanol-based fuels. The performance gain is huge, however it does have some drawbacks as well. Let's join Andrew as he catches up with the guys from Newline Products Australia to find out the pros and cons of E85.
E85 is the chosen fuel of many performance vehicle enthusiasts. The reason they're choosing E85, it's a fantastic fuel for increasing the power output, the kilowatts or the horsepower out of your engine. The way it does that, it's a cooler burning fuel, allows you to put more boost, generate more power out of your vehicle. Second reason people are moving towards it, obviously cost. Really high octane performance fuels, price is astronomical. E85 can be found at the pump. It's a great alternative for enthusiasts. When running E85 in your performance vehicle, you need to consume a lot more of the fuel to generate the power. This means upgrading your fuel system, your injector system, to be able to cope with a higher flow rate of fuel. With E85, there's a few things we need to consider. E85 is a hygroscopic fuel. It'll absorb moisture out of the air we breathe. With moisture comes problems. We have corrosion problems. We can also have water separating from the fuel. So water's a key thing we need to address when we're running this style of fuel. When we're running these fuels in, say, an older vehicle that may still have some steel components, corrosion is a big problem. We need to make sure we've got the right corrosion protection, the right moisture protection system with the fuel to ensure that we get the best out of our vehicle. Unilon has developed a specific E85 fuel additive which manages the moisture problem you have and also contains corrosion inhibitors. Will actually inhibit the corrosion process through a fuel system. There are a lot of other ingredients in the product. It's also a cleaning agent. So with that high volume of fuel going through your system, you'll have increased rates of contamination. We need to make sure we keep the system nice and clean. The other problem with E85, it reacts with oxygen and it does go stale very quickly. So we've built in an antioxidant which keeps your fuel fresher for longer. When we upgrade to E85, we've got to consider the oil we're using in our vehicle as well. With E85, you're introducing a lot more fuel into the combustion chamber. Normally, you bring a lot of boost with that as well in turbocharged vehicles. Combination of those two, we're getting a lot more fuel passing the rings on the compression stroke. Where does that fuel go? Into the oil. We've got to be able to manage fuel entering our oil and diluting our oil. The second thing that E85 brings with it is a lot of moisture into the system. If we allow moisture to separate out of our oil and form droplets, one droplet into a big end bearing will end up with catastrophic failure of that bearing. Water, as a liquid, is fine. As soon as it's put under heat and pressure, it expands at a rate of 1,000 to 1. So you imagine all that steam trying to expand from a bearing surface, pushes all the oil out, metal on metal, catastrophe. So what do we need to do to an engine oil to make it suitable for an E85 upgrade? The way we manage that is through what we call oil retention, and it's the additive package, and it's the chemistry we build in our oils to keep those fluids evenly separated throughout your oil. It'll still pass through the system and not cause any problems. Without that chemistry, we're in real big trouble with E85. And you'll find those ratings on our full synthetic, high quality race oils.
Time for an ad break now, but don't go anywhere because after the break, we're going to take a look at the top 5 battles of all time.
Welcome back to the Just Car Insurance Australian Drifting GP. Now, we've had some pretty intense battles since we started. It's going to be tough. We've got to try and choose our top 5 favourite battles. Brett, have you got a favourite battle since we started?
Oh, look, definitely. One that sticks in my mind for me is Michael Rosenblatt chasing Bo Yates at the Thunderdome in the 2013-14 season. I think it was a big turning point for Michael. It definitely labelled him as one of the best chase drivers in the country.
I think those guys went a couple of reruns. Following year, they had to battle again with I think they could go the entire top 5 if need be. But for me, I think one of the big standouts was Shane Van Gisbergen chasing Levi Clark last year at Mallala. Definitely one of my favourites, but let's do this. We're going to try and pick our top 5 favourite battles of all time for ADGP. Let's go. Our first pairing, Shane Van Gisbergen and Levi Clark. The Giz had car problems on his first run, but they switched it around. He wanted vengeance and gave us this wild run. They switched it around now. Levi throws it into the Giz right there. Mega aggressive on the trace. Look how close the Giz is all over the back of Levi as they go into that Drift School Australia outer clip, now into the last corner, and the Giz is right up on his door, showing what he can really do, but it's too little too late after throwing that first run away. Judges couldn't split them on the first run, so they are going to go for a rerun. So many reruns this weekend because the drivers have been pushing so hard. But the judges finding it difficult to split them. The smallest mistake is all it takes. Fink throws it in, full speed. Coulson is right there, doing everything he can to keep up to that Holford Motors S14. Both of these drivers, perfect line, hitting that outer clip. And Coulson trying to get up on the inside there of the Holford's car, not doing too bad a job. In any other battle, we'd consider that great proximity, but we know what Luke Fink is capable of on this track. And let's see what he does now as he pulls in behind the Just Nice cars via Ute, throws it in. Big angle from Coulson on that entry, lots of speed, but Luke Fink once again is just all over the back of him. He is locked on target, and look at this, giving him a little rub, a little kiss, a little scrape, saying hello. And check out the slow motion replay. Luke Fink is just giving it a little kiss, not upsetting the line of Nick Coulson, and putting on a great show for the crowd. Bo Yates up against Michael Rosenblatt. These guys gave us the battle of the year here at the Thunderdome last season. Will they do it again? Bo Yates will lead as the #1 qualifier, pedal to the metal, full throttle entry, throws it in. He has bigger angle than Rosenblatt. Rosenblatt goes a little bit wide there, nearly goes off. He then is shallow to try and come up with Bo Yates coming out of the horseshoe. He's pushing very aggressive, but a little bit messy to keep up with the Achilles radial hairpin. But Bo Yates throws down a textbook, perfect aggressive lead run that would be very difficult for anyone to match. Rosenblatt, he throws it in, a little bit slower by the looks of it on that entry, goes wide there, gets the tyre off a couple of times, but Bo Yates is right there on his door, coming out of the New Line Oils horseshoe, chases him in now to that last hairpin, and Bo Yates. Our next pairing, Michael Prosnick up against Brent Gordon, both in supercharged V8 Silvias. This is their second rerun, but there was no mistakes. The judges simply just could not split them and get a clear winner after the first two runs. However, second rerun, the judges must make a decision. Prosnick will lead as the higher qualifier, full throttle run up, throws it in, a little bit lazy winding on the end to begin with, but he's there now. Brent Gordon diving in to get nice and close. This is almost a carbon copy of their last run. Gordon putting down a very solid chase. Prosnick, great lead run. And across the finish line now to finish their first run of their second rerun. Judges calling through, saying there is still no advantage either way. They want to see what happens on the second run, but they must choose a winner on the second rerun. Gordon leads now, throws it in. Great entry from Gordon. Prosnick now dives in on the chase into the horseshoe, putting down another solid chase run. Gordon gets right out there and taps the wall on the infield into the Achilles radial hairpin now. Once again, this is tough to call. We're going to go to the replay and the judges on this one.
On board with Brent Gordon, you can see that it's pretty tough to call and would normally be a rerun, but the ADGP regulations state that a winner must be decided after the second rerun. It became a case of looking for the tiniest mistake or advantage, but with no real mistakes made by either driver, the judges saw that Gordon went a little closer to the inner wall and was closer on his chase through the hairpin, which handed him the win.
This was one of the most controversial and talked about battles of the weekend. Rosenblatt on his first lap gave us probably the best chase run of the season, right up on Bo Yates' door, especially on that last corner. When they switched it around, Rosenblatt had a few corrections on his entry. It was a little bit messy. The judges wanted to see it all again. And the second time around, Rosenblatt gave us more of the same, right up on Bo Yates' door for most of the course. Nearly rubbing on that last corner, showing total control. But when they switched it around, Rosenblatt tagged the wall, straightened out, and then put a tyre off. And that sent the advantage back the other way, so they had to do it one more time again. So this is their second rerun. Bo Yates leads, throws it in big, another great entry, but Rosenblatt has a big mistake, straightens out on the entry following Bo Yates in. He's gathered himself back up now and he's nice and close, door to door, coming into the last corner. We could watch these guys go all day with runs like that. No big advantage going either way. Rosenblatt had that big correction coming into the first corner, which counteracted his proximity through the rest of the course. But what's this? Rosenblatt throws it in too big. It's off the track and he gets a zero. Bo Yates had no real choice. He was following him in, but Rosenblatt went right off and throws it away. Let's go to the Achilles radial replay now. You can see on the entry, Rosenblatt has a big correction. The wheels are straight there. He manages to re-initiate the drift and get right up on Bo Yates' door. Welcome back to the Just Car Insurance Australian Drifting GP. Now, Australia's premier drifting series, we've established some strong relationships with overseas drifting championships, and we're starting the Asian Drifting GP later this year. Now, back in 2013, ADGP brought Formula Drift to Australia for the very first time, and our championship manager, Brett Wilkinson, has worked for FD as well as various drifting events in Asia.
Formula Drift is now considered by most drivers as a pinnacle of the sport. Our current season is just getting started, but their 2015 championship has just come to a close. We thought we'd take a look at some highlights from that championship and find out who won.
Formula Drift is where the best of the best come to battle it out from around the world. Big names have come from all around the globe, including Japan, Europe, New Zealand and more. The competition is insanely fierce, and staying consistent across 7 rounds to take the championship is no easy feat. Let's take a look at the highlights for the 2015 season. Like many years previously, round 1 kicked off on the streets of Long Beach. The road surface with concrete walls all around makes for some spectacular battles, thrills and spills.
Into that rear clipping zone. Look at Field, he is right there. Trying to close the gap, but he does not. Oh! Osbo a little breaking up there, but then puts up. Oh!
Chase driver, it seems like on every single run, he just keeps getting closer and closer.
He's in that gap, but now he's catching up to the door. Oh, and a big correction from Turk.
Frederick Asbo took the win of round 1 in the Rockstar Scion TC. Round 2 headed to Road Atlanta, another long-time track in Formula D.
Coming out of the horseshoe. Back up the hill at Forsberg.
Ken Gucci made a return to form this season, making the finals, but Odie Buckchis took the round win. Round 3 hit Orlando Speedworld, a new track for Formula Drift. Mixed weather gave some mixed results at round 3, but Ken Gucci and Chris Forsberg both made it onto the podium with 3rd and 2nd respectively, and Ryan Turek took the win in the Scion FRS. Odie Buckchis held onto the championship lead with Turek, Forsberg and Gucci moving ahead of Asbo, who dropped back to 5th, but it was still a tight race. The 4th round of the season headed to New Jersey, and it was more wild weather mixed with wild action.
Ponies, oh! And Pollock into the side of Yokoi fighting back. Needs to apply the pressure, needs to let it all hang out. And Odibashi, if he continues on with the course.
Most of the championship contenders were knocked out early, but Asbo went all the way, taking the win and giving his championship chase a massive boost. Round 5 headed to Seattle and more wet weather. Once again, lots of championship contenders were out early and only Frederick Asbo would make it to the top end of the field. He went up against Alec Handel in the finals and ended up taking another round win. He's third for the season, putting him in front of the championship chase with a nice big buffer. Round 6 headed to Texas for some crashing, bashing and thrashing bull riding style.
With as much angle as possible. The lead driver is setting the pace, but the chase driver is right here. He wraps around that second inside clip. Kenny Moen making contact now. No secret that Daigo's...
Asbo went up against his kryptonite, Daigo Sato, and lost after being smoked out. But he retained the lead of the championship.
How are these guys going to fare? Who's moving on to the Final Four, Ryan?
Well, here we go. Osbo on the inside. Saito already throwing up a big plume of smoke. Osbo coming through. It looks like he's getting lost, and Osbo goes off course, and Osbo is nowhere to be seen as Daigo Saito runs away with it.
Forsberg and Gushi got another podium, but Japanese driver Yokoi took the win in Texas. Coming into the final round, Asbo still had quite a commanding lead to the point where he pretty much had the championship in the bag. However, that didn't stop the drivers from battling it out at the House of Drift for the final round.
Each driver leading once, the driver that was the most consistent, most aggressive, and was able to show true dominance over the other driver.
Asbo had already taken the championship, but he still fought hard and made it to the finals against Ken Gushi. Asbo took his 4th win of the season, and another podium for Gushi gave him 2nd in the championship, with Chris Forsberg in 3rd. Another roller coaster of a season packed with action. We can't wait to see what unfolds in 2016. Welcome back to the Just Car Insurance Australian Drifting GP. So, Brett, more big announcements for ADGP for this season.
That's right, Andrew. We're happy to announce that this season we've joined forces with CAMS.
Now, for the viewers watching, how does joining with CAMS affect not only ADGP, but the sport of drifting in Australia as well?
Well, moving into our 5th season, we definitely continue to develop and evolve the sport within this country. I mean, CAMS is the biggest sanctioning body of motorsport in this country, and together I think we can definitely help build the platform and profile of drifting.
So working with CAMS doesn't just help us here in Australia, obviously it's got a lot of benefits for us overseas as well.
That's right. Joining forces with an FIA sanctioned body as well is definitely important to us for the Asian Drifting GP that we're about to kick off in December.
Well, certainly big news, and something else that's big in the sport of drifting as well as every motorsport is tyres. So coming up now, we've got a feature on the technical aspect of tyres and how they affect drifting, thanks to one of our sponsors, Achilles Radial, the official tyre of ADGP. Tyres are one of the most important aspects of any motorsport. They're the only part of the car that actually touches the ground, so they're essentially the weakest or strongest link. Now, many people think that drifting requires any old slippery tyre, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Like any motorsport, they require maximum grip, so you can get maximum speed out of the car. But in drifting, the wheels are spinning, meaning they don't have full traction, which adds a whole new dimension to making sure the tyre does its job. Now, one of the most popular tyre brands on the market for drifting worldwide is Achilles Radial, which is also the official tyre of ADGP. Now, Achilles markets their ATR Sport 2 and their 123S as their main drifting tyres. Which one you use comes down to the rules of the drift event you are entering, with the ATR Sport having 400 treadwear rating and the 123S having 220 treadwear rating. Now, luckily, what makes a good drift tyre also makes a great performance road tyre as well. So what exactly does make a good drift tyre? Well, the key to any good performance tyre is having a stiff sidewall and a strong tread block, which the 123S does thanks to its semi-slick style design. But with a drift tyre, you want to compromise between grip, which requires a soft compound, and being able to last, which requires a hard compound, which comes down to the treadwear rating. Now, the 123S has combined the best of both worlds and managed to get that magical formula, and the drift version of the 123S has a larger tread depth than the track version, so it lasts that little bit longer. Now, with a drift tyre, you want to make sure the carcass of the tyre stays together right down till the tyre is bald and it doesn't fly apart or delaminate as it gets to the end of its tread depth. Now, tyres also get very hot when they're wheel spinning, so the ability to handle that heat is very important. Both the ATR Sport 2 and the 123S are designed with that in mind, making them one of the most popular drifting tyres on the market, with the results to back it up.
Well, that brings us to the end of this show. Next episode, we bring you round 2.
That's right, ADGP is heading to Adelaide International Raceway for the very first time. We're designing a custom track layout. No one's ever used it before. Exciting stuff, and can't wait to see the action unfold.
For more information on the events or how to purchase tickets, head over to our website, australiandriftinggp.com.au. Bye for now.